We have significant breaking news from the NHL. Toronto Maple Leafs president Brendan Shanahan officially out. We'll discuss the announcement from MLSE and look at a statement from Shanahan himself coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some significant breaking news, widely been speculated here over the last 24 to 48 hours. But Toronto Maple Leafs alternate governor and team president Brendan Shanahan is officially out, and he's officially been relieved of his duties. Essentially, MLSE has made the announcement that his contract will not be renewed. We knew that Shanahan was working on an expiring contract, and the success or lack thereof of the team in this year's playoffs was likely going to play a large role in the team's decision whether or not to offer him an extension or how things were going to play out, not only for him, but a lot of other key members in the organization, including some very important pending unrestricted free agent players like Mitch Marner and former captain John Tavares. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the other guys in the UFA status. For right now, this appears as though the only change within hockey operations, at least at the highest level, will be Shanahan. And the statement put out by MLSE, he's the only one that's been announced as being changed or removed from his role. But they obviously, mentioned in the statement all the great things that he's done with this team. He was there for over a decade, come on in 2014. And at the time that he came on board, this team and franchise was in pretty well chaos, you could say. He did bring a lot of stability and brought back a lot of respect and certainly helped them. He didn't ultimately get them to where they wanted to go, and it's win a Stanley Cup. But they did do a lot of great things. They made a lot of big improvements. They brought in a lot of young talent. That talent has now matured and aged and had many opportunities to win Stanley Cups, unfortunately falling short. But like I said, you look around with a lot of other teams that are looking to make changes or, with Shanahan possibly going to work for another club. As much as a lot of people like to give the Leafs a hard time, there's a lot of teams that would love to have the regular season track record that they've had for the past 8-9 years. Constantly being a playoff team. Obviously won the division this past year. You never have to worry too much if you're getting in. Like they didn't really, outside of the very early days of the Matthews-Marner era, they didn't even squeak in. They were always very comfortable for the most part. So there's a lot of things that he did. Now, was there blunders? Was there mistakes? Sure. Like any team that doesn't hit their ultimate goal, there's things you can look at along the way. And, obviously one of them might be the choice of GM. Did they make the right choice going with Kyle Dubas instead of Mark Hunter? I question that being one of the big blunders. Opportunity to break up the core four, maybe change the mix earlier than what they did. They did not. They kept, obviously they all got their big contracts, made it tough to make any move. And now the only reason we're probably going to see change is because two of them are on an expiring contract. Not to say that individually, all of their top individual guys, they're all really great players. But in the opinion of myself and many others, they just need to change the mix. This mix of core four guys or core five or whatever you want to call it, include Riley or you want to include Nyes now, they haven't been able to get it done. So, at some point, you're going to see a lot of it stay and a few changes tweak. And unfortunately, we haven't really seen that besides the supporting cast. And you win and lose, to me, with your leaders. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, they didn't really confirm. We don't know if this situation is going to have a new president, or they may choose to leave the spot vacant and just have Brad Treliving report directly to Keith Pelley, which appears to be how it's going to work, at least for the time being. But in Brendan Shanahan's statement, he obviously says that he was informed at a meeting today that he will not be offered a new contract to remain as team president and alternate governor. So clearly, I think if he would have been offered an extension, I think he likely would have stayed. He goes on to say, he was a Toronto-born person and player, obviously grew up in the area, played in the NHL, came back to his hometown to try to help, did a lot of great things, but admits ultimately fell short of winning a Stanley Cup. And, really enjoyed his time there. As I mentioned before, there is a link to the New York Islanders. It's not a given that he's going to take the job, but the New York Islanders had reached out to the Leafs and requested permission to speak with him in the last 24 to 48 hours. That permission was granted, which a lot of people would have been speculating yesterday, saying, well, why would they give permission if they were going to offer him an extension? So, here we are, right? It makes sense that he's moving on. You know, a lot of people think he's going to be right at the top of the list for the New York Islanders, and maybe that's the case. But ultimately, you know, he has to make a decision too. There is belief, like I said before, that this is something he may be interested in. Obviously, prior, he worked with the league before. I believe, from what we've had for information, that he's maintained a residence in New York, so it's not like it would be, you know, a far stray for him to return to that state. So it makes a lot of sense that this could work out to be a good fit professionally and personally for him. And like I said before, you know, the long relationship he's had with Lou Lamoriello. I know Lou's not theoretically involved anymore, but, you know, for him to kind of come in as a, you know, to take over from Lou, it just makes a lot of sense. And it wouldn't be shocking to me if Shanahan turns out to be the guy that maybe Lou is in some kind of advisory role. Ultimately, they need to have, you know, some new people in there making the decisions, so I'm calling the shots. Bruce Garriock of the Ottawa Sun was reporting earlier that he saw different executives and different talk around the league saying that Shanahan was not only interviewing for the president role, but he might be considered for the president/GM. That to me would seem a little weird. He's never been a GM. He's always been the president executive, worked for the league prior to that. I think it's a two-person job if Shanahan's involved. That's my opinion, but time will tell. So ultimately, Shanahan is officially out in Toronto. We will see what happens next. We should be getting more information. The remaining people in the organization should be speaking to the media here soon, and we'll kind of get a play for what they have in store. And of course, it'll be a little bit likely before we get more confirmation on the future of some of these players and big-time players that could be potentially moving on. We'll see. If Shanahan goes to the Islanders, would Marner follow suit? I mean, that's a question I posed here in the last couple of days since all this came about. I think it's a valid question. I think the Islanders are a team that suddenly find themselves in a unique situation with the change in regime. They get the first overall pick this year, and I think that they'd want to kind of accelerate a retool, if you will. And adding Marner, I think, could be a great fit with players like Barzal, for example, and Horvat. And you throw in a first overall pick. They've picked up a few good prospects lately, like Yzerman and Ritchie. You know, you throw in maybe moving on from a couple more veterans. It might take a year, but like within 2 years, I could see this team being way better. They have good goaltending. They still have some decent defensemen there. There's lots to build around, but they need to move out some more vets, continue adding to the prospects like they have been. And this first overall pick is going to be a huge help. And if they can add a player like Marner, who also, besides the Shanahan connection, we know he's very close with Matt Martin as well. Martin may not play anymore, but he's still going to be living in the area, be around the team. So there's stuff there to me that makes sense for Mitch. But again, I don't know what Mitch wants. That's just a personal gut feeling instinct that, you know, could be interesting. And like I said, 7 years ago, the Islanders captain went to Toronto. Different circumstances, very, very different, but it's not really going to feel like revenge per se, getting one of their top guys back 7 years later, when I know a lot of the fan base sounds like, at least, that they'd be quite happy to see Mitch move on. Not the same thing where the Islanders fans were, you know, begging John to stay. So let me see what everybody thinks down in the comments. Shanahan's officially out. Do you think he's going to end up with the Islanders? And if so, is Marner going to follow? How's this all going to play out? Let me know your thoughts. We'll talk about it further. And of course, I'll be back later with another video to recap the rest of today's news and rumors around the NHL. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.